Imagine a system of government where absolutely no one, not even the most powerful regional governor, was above the law. A system where any citizen had a direct line to the head of state to file a complaint. Now, this isn't some modern-day dream. This was the reality under the second Caliph of Islam, Umar ibn al-Khattab. He built this revolutionary framework for accountability that, honestly, still feels radical today.
I mean, this one sentence just tells you everything you need to know about the standard Umar was demanding. This wasn't about political stability or keeping his friends happy. No, it was about an absolute zero-tolerance policy for injustice, no matter how small, and being ready to act on it instantly.
So, how in the world was this incredible system actually built? Well, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the core philosophy, the why. Then we'll look at the nuts and bolts, the accountability engine itself. After that, we'll see how the public was empowered, look at some jaw-dropping real-world examples, and finally, wrap up by talking about the legacy of it all.
Okay, first things first. To really get how this system worked, you have to understand why it was even created. For Umar, leadership wasn't this big power trip. It was about shouldering a massive, profound responsibility, not just to the people, but to God.
And it all boils down to this one single concept, amana. This is the absolute key. It completely changes the game. Leadership isn't a privilege anymore. It's a sacred trust, this heavy weight that you have to carry with perfect justice.
And you have to understand, this wasn't some political theory Umar just came up with. He was directly applying a command from the Quran. The entire system of accountability was built on this divine foundation, which made justice a complete non-negotiable. It was an act of faith.
This just shows his unbelievable dedication to what you might call active stewardship. He was echoing the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who taught that leadership demands constant watchfulness. It wasn't a set-it-and-forget-it kind of job. So, let's see how this idea was turned into the actual design of the state.
So, if leadership is a sacred trust, how do you actually enforce that across a huge, expanding state? Umar didn't just cross his fingers and hope for the best. No, he built a sophisticated, multi-layered engine to ensure accountability.
Now, what's really wild here is how these methods, created way back in the 7th century, have these direct parallels to modern checks and balances. You've got an intelligence service, kind of like a state security agency, a general inspector, that's basically an independent investigator, surprise visits, think of them as audits, and public entry protocols for total transparency. It was incredibly systematic.
He set up an intelligence service that was so effective, it was said he knew what was going on in the most distant provinces like it was happening in the room next door. The sources say words spoken in the East would reach him in the West by morning.
But get this, it wasn't all just secret surveillance. He created a formal, public-facing role, a kind of inspector general. This man, Muhammad ibn Maslamah, was the guy you sent to investigate complaints on the ground, talk to the people directly, and bring his findings straight back to Umar.
But look, this top-down oversight, that was only half of the equation. The other half, and you could argue it was even more revolutionary, was all about creating direct, open channels for the public to hold their own leaders to account.
Umar put policies in place that were literally engineered for radical transparency. For example, governors coming back to the capital had to enter during the day so everyone could see exactly what wealth they were bringing with them. And he set up an open mail service, so anyone could send a letter of complaint that went straight to him, totally bypassing the local governor.
The really crucial thing to get here is that these weren't just one-off policies. This was a whole system designed for feedback. He'd have provinces send official delegations to give testimony, he'd use the state mail carriers to actually ask for letters from regular people, and most famously, he used the annual Hajj pilgrimage as this massive public forum for accountability. With all these different avenues, it was almost impossible for a governor to hide any wrongdoing.
Okay, so we've got the principles, we've got the mechanisms, but did it actually work? This is where we see the system put to the ultimate test, and the results are, frankly, just astonishing.
This was the ultimate public review. To try to picture, it's like a modern-day summit where every single regional leader has to show up, and then the floor is open to any citizen from any province to stand up and lodge a complaint directly. This happened every single year.
And this story, wow. This story brilliantly illustrates the raw power of this system. During one of these Hajj assemblies, a man stood up and complained that a governor had unjustly whipped him. Umar confirmed the story, and he didn't just promise an investigation later. Following the direct example of the Prophet Muhammad, who taught that no leader is above the law, he turned to the man and told him right then and there, "Get up and retaliate."
So think about that.
The governor, one of the most powerful men in the state, was about to be publicly whipped by an ordinary citizen. To avoid it, he had to negotiate a settlement on the spot. He ended up paying the man 200 dinars, a huge sum of gold coins, 2 for every single lash he'd unjustly given. Justice wasn't delayed, it was immediate, and it was public.
But this powerful commitment to justice wasn't just about these dramatic public moments. It was about building a durable institutional legacy that would last long after any one person was gone.
You see, Umar understood that true justice needs a paper trail. He kept a state archive, basically a chest where every single treaty and official document was saved. This was to make sure that the rights of all people were protected, and that governors could be held accountable to the promises they had made.
And I mean, no one was exempt. When a complaint came in against Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, a famous general and one of the earliest, most respected Muslims, Umar didn't just brush it off. He sent his inspector general to conduct a full, open, and public investigation, literally going from mosque to ask people for their testimony. That sent the clearest message possible. Your status and your history don't give you a free pass.
You know, when you reflect on this model of governance from almost 1,400 years ago, it's pretty humbling. It was built on the idea that leadership is a sacred trust, and it was enforced through systematic oversight and radical public transparency. It really leaves us with a powerful question for our own time. What does true accountability actually look like, and what are we willing to do to get it?